Sufi stories are usually on the surface quite simple, but they carry within them tons of treasures. So let's dive in. Three men made their way to the circle of a Sufi master, seeking admissions to his teachings. Upset and triggered by the erratic behavior of the Sufi teacher, one of them detached himself from the group almost at once. On the master's instructions, the second was told by another disciple that the sage was a fraud, and he immediately proceeded to denounce the teacher and left the circle. The third stayed, but he was never addressed individually by the teacher, nor was he ever offered any direct teaching. And that went on for so long that he lost interest and renounced the circle. When all three had left, the teacher shared with his disciples. The first man, he said, was an illustration of principle. Do not gauge fundamental things by sight alone. Do not gauge things barely based on some principles you have developed for yourself. The second, he said, was an illustration of injunction. Do not judge things of deep importance by simply hearing another's opinion. Let me repeat that. Do not judge things of deep importance by simply hearing another's opinion. The third, he said, was an example of dictum. Never judge your knowing by the attention given or lack of it by an authoritative figure. Let me repeat that again. Never judge your own knowing by validation or attention given or not given by an authoritative figure. I'm going to just pause here for a second. Let you take it in. And then I'm going to repeat those three things again, because there was a lot in these words. The first man that just left, just at the mere glance of, I just don't like the behavior of this teacher, he said is an illustration of principle. Do not gauge fundamental things by how they appear. The second, an illustration of injunction. Do not judge things of deep importance by simply hearing the opinion of others. Third, an example of dictum. Never judge your knowing by validation or attention provided or not provided by an authoritative figure. Life is the greatest teacher if you pay attention. And just like the Sufi master, life is also testing all of us. Begin to understand what is it that life itself is trying to teach you and how to be a good student of that. Because in order to create something, you will have to become a student of that thing, won't you? If I want to start a yoga studio, then I want to study yoga. I need to become a student of yoga. Then I can teach yoga. If you want to become an entrepreneur, if you want to become a programmer, right? If you want to become a life coach, whatever that is for you, don't you think you will first have to surrender and bow to the teacher that would teach you the skills that are needed for you to manifest your desire. And all desires, all intentions are manifested from life. You keep praying to life to make things happen for you. But that's not how teachers work. Every teacher will first check for are you receptive for what you desire? Do you have room for what you desire? If you have no room, life cannot offer that to you. So life always will test you as a teacher about your level of receptivity. So if you look back at your life and you think about the first, all three students exist within all of us, by the way, right? So how many times have you encountered life as it was showing up? Maybe the lessons it was giving you were ugly, they were erratic, they were disruptive to your life. And you tossed them out, or you repressed those experiences and said, I don't want to deal with this. I have nothing to do with this. I want things that give me comfort. I want things that give me pleasure. So right there, you denounced the teacher. You denounced the circle. And you left. Never judge something purely on face value. Now let's take that further into maybe your relationships. Maybe some opportunities that might have showed up that really didn't look like the end result that you want, but they were in raw form. And you, again, rejected them because they did not look like what you actually intended. For most of us, when we think of resolutions or desires or intentions, somehow we have a way of thinking that it should show up exactly as we picture in our mind. And that almost never, ever happens. Think of people in your life. How many do you not engage with because they don't look like what you would expect them to? In my own personal experience, the best conversations, the best experiences I've had are with people with whom I actually overcame my initial instinct, my initial aversion to. And if I dig a little bit deeper, just a little bit deeper, I find a gem right there. And I've tried to do the same thing with my life experiences. So no matter how they show up, if you dig in a little deeper, just a little bit deeper, scratch the surface, you will find there is something there for you, a lesson waiting for you. And you begin to appreciate life as a teacher so much more. Now you are earning the trust of the teacher. So life keeps giving you these opportunities, but it waits. Do you receive them? Do you have the bandwidth? Do you have the wisdom? Do you have the patience? Just dig in a little more to check in with it. Why are you offering me this experience? To whatever life brings to you, pause. Slow the pace of your existence down. Slow the pace of your breath down. So you can consider, why am I having this experience? The opportunities usually exist within experiences that seem disruptive. So that's the first student within us. The second one, he says, was told by a disciple that the teacher was a fraud. And he immediately proceeded to leave the circle. When life has tossed us around quite a bit, life seems like a fraud too, doesn't it? How many of you have had that experience of where you get to a place in your life where you say, I don't believe in God, there is no God? It can't be. If there was a God, then how could terrible things take place in life? Why would I have experienced such and such in life? Why would my innocence be threatened? Why can't everybody be happy all the time? Why isn't there peace on earth all the time? And then we become friends with like-minded people who also reinforce that belief. And very often we miss opportunities of connection, again, without looking deeper into someone, just believing another person's opinion. And that tends to happen a lot with our collective consciousness. The first example, the first student I find is the example of our egoic mind, right? Where we think we know everything. So I've just scanned the surface and I just know. Yes, no, no, that's not for me. That's the egoic mind. The second example is of the collective mind. Whatever the collective believes becomes normal for us, becomes acceptable for us. And you can see that a lot in the social media that's going on right now, right? I'm really amazed at the power of the social media. I know so many people, so many teachers, so many healers who do such incredible work, but they're not social media savvy. So they don't have hundreds of followers. But that doesn't mean that they are of any less value. And I find people usually, and not all of them, there's also a lot of talent here, but a lot of people really don't have talent, but they know how to market themselves. So are you believing what the marketing is saying? Or do you have the capacity to lean into the essence of someone or something? If you have not yet developed the capacity to check in for yourself, trust that intuition, then you fall into the category of the second student. You believe what the collective follows. And a lot of us in this process do get burnt, don't we? I hear that all the time. People say that that person was so well renowned and that person rubbed elbows with such and such in the Silicon Valley circles, and then I went to them and didn't receive anything. So I again ask you to check in with yourself when you begin to work on an intention, what that intention, what that dharma call is for you, that comes from you. Make sure that anyone else's opinion doesn't strike that down. You stay with that intention long enough, no matter what people around you say. When I was starting my journey, following my dharma, and I opened the first yoga studio, you have no idea how many things were projected in the form of advice from that collective consciousness, from my friends, some of my family, and everybody was really afraid for me. And I would listen to their opinions. I would listen to the advice. And I found out, because I stuck with it, I just stayed in it, meditated on it long enough, giving them the benefit of the doubt, of course. Anytime you hear somebody's opinion, give them the benefit of the doubt. Pause, but pause. Don't just act on it. So as I meditated on all those advices and opinions, I realized that everyone was simply just expressing what they would do if they were in the situation that I was in. They actually weren't telling me what to do. And I found that within that advice was so much fear. They were telling me if they were in my situation, their fear would not make them act. But that doesn't mean I should not listen to my inner knowing and act in spite of the risks. And I'm very grateful that I had all that advice. I'm very grateful for that collective mind just allowing me that mirror to my own inner fears. But when you can see those and you understand those fears are theirs, they're not mine, then maybe you can take pieces of their advice that is useful. You can take the caution with you, but continue to act on your inner seeking, your own knowing, your own intuition, your own dharma. For anyone who's created anything purposeful in life, yes, people you admire, you will find each of them have gone through this process. They were all advised against what they did. They were advised against breaking the rules, against breaking the norms. But they followed on their intuition. So that is the teacher again. The teacher seeks trust. Your intuition is a teacher for you. It is saying, trust me beyond what anyone else says, and I will take you there. I promise I will take you there. Stick with me. And how often we don't. But then we cry, we complain. Why do things not happen for me? That's the reason. The third kind of student, the Sufi master says, would be someone who stays long enough, on a seeker's path, absolutely long enough. But they somehow need attention of the teacher. They need validation that they are growing. And that's again a part of our, I would call it that ego mind, that attention-seeking mind, that validation piece in us. Life, like I said, is your biggest teacher. But notice, yes, life will directly offer you lessons, which are usually hidden in disruption. First of all, we deny the disruption and we don't want to receive that. Secondly, life is not only teaching you directly, it is also teaching you indirectly. So don't keep waiting that a lesson will just land in your lap and epiphany would happen and, now I know my path and now I can walk on it. Look around. Anyone you become aware of in your environment, on media or whatever, you watch their story. If you are aware, if that story is in your consciousness, your awareness, that means that lesson was also being given to you indirectly. Did you learn? Did you receive? And don't wait for it to be validated. Trust the knowing, the teacher that resides within you. Be patient. Do not ever say to your life, I have been waiting long enough. And if it hasn't happened now, that's it. I'm giving up. How well has that worked for you? Because I'm pretty sure some of you've tried it. I know I have tried it. And it doesn't work because the lesson is still there. The unfulfilled emotions are still there. I'll give you an example. I recently worked with somebody who said that they've been a seeker for 28 years. And he said, I'm seeking enlightenment. I'm seeking liberation. I'm seeking spiritual evolution. And I've been doing this for 28 years. And for 28 years, he has collected countless books, countless knowledge. He's a very intelligent human being. He's a psychiatrist himself. But he felt so lost, seeking 28 years. And he reminded me of this third student, where he almost had a complaint with the universe, like, how long will it take? And when I said to him, well, it can happen in this moment, or it can take forever, however long you want. The choice is actually yours. Because that which you need to get enlightened, if you will mind use the word, first of all, we have to define that word too. But whatever you need to get enlightened is actually already here, right now, within you and around you. You can avoid those lessons. You can ignore the teacher and you can go to the books. And the books will fill you with knowledge. You can quote anyone. But that doesn't change anything. He actually quoted a lot of the Jungian psychology, Jungian psychology to me about Kundalini and all that fun stuff. So I asked him a very simple question. I said, tell me this. If Carl Jung is that teacher that you think you can read those books and get to that point of enlightenment or liberation or understand your own psyche, then why is it that he wasn't enlightened? I gave him a pause. So then I proceeded to ask him about what he did for his practice, for his own spiritual growth, because he's been with many masters, many teachers over those 28 years, and some very popular ones too. And when he said, like, here's the deal, I'm a workaholic. I work like these many hours a day, and I love what I do, but I have very little time to meditate. And he said, if if you're going to be my teacher, one thing I want to tell you is I'm not going to wake up early. I only have 15 minutes to meditate. And I'm not going to take cold showers. Somehow he heard about Kundalini Yoga and cold showers. So right there were preferences. You cannot learn by having preferences in the way. Another thing he said, that in the 15 minutes that I have, I go to this altar, and that altar is covered with all these beautiful statues that I bought when I visited India and Tibet. My altar is so beautiful, and he showed me pictures of his altar. And it was indeed very beautiful. But he said he has 15 minutes to meditate, so he gets his cup of coffee and he sits down in front of his altar. He closes his eyes and he tries to watch each thought as it comes by and not attach to it while he drinks his coffee. So in a way, multitasking. And I just had to smile, because coffee activates, and in meditation, you're trying to deactivate the mind. So it's like trying to row a leaky boat on a river to get to the other side. So it's kind of contrary to each other. So it was very interesting talking to him, and I got to see an example of all these three students in him. And there's always a time inquiry. It's like, how long will it take now? Well, as long as it takes for you to get receptive, as long as it takes for you to surrender, as long as it takes for you to become an empty canvas. Do you know, in some of the Taoist Buddhists, their book of wisdom, the highest book of wisdom, is actually a blank copy. There's nothing on the pages at all. All the pages are blank, white. And that is to represent that unless you clear your biases, unless you clear your predetermined opinions or the collective opinions that you have absorbed, you will have to undo a lot of that. Maybe that's why the yogis say that enlightenment is not really a process of gaining something more. It's actually a process of unlearning. So become an empty canvas. Start from scratch. Clear what you know about anything. Even if you tried the same thing before, clear it out. Sit every day in that surrendered presence and say, I don't know. I don't know, dear teacher. That is why I'm here, to learn from you. And you teach me at the pace you want to teach me, because you know me better than I do. But if you have already determined that you know, you've lost the game already. You're only looking at frustration going forward. So my advice and my prayer for you is that you learn to become an empty canvas and let life write the story for you. It's so easy. It's easier that way. And you can read the story and you can gain the meaning and the treasures and the essence out of that story. It's effortless, no hustling or hassling required. But you can set timelines. So even if you have resolutions and you've set time limit to do this, take those away. Because time activates the mind. And once the mind activates, the ego activates. Once the ego activates, surrender is not possible. Receptivity is not possible. So all you have to do is become receptive, and the life that you have, as the teacher that you have, the people that you have around you as mirrors to you, they will all teach you. Your opportunities will show up right there between the lines. Have a beautiful, blessed Monday, and I will see you next time.